Good morning, everyone. It's my huddle again, and I'd like to first say Happy Chinese New Year. I wish you all have a healthy, wealthy, and prosperous year of ox. It's the golden ox, so you must be healthy and wealthy. Yeah. So today I'm actually going to talk about something about China. As you all know, China is the home of the tea, and I think tea is a very popular drink in West and East countries. So it's a very interesting topic because from my opinion, tea is actually a very special way that we can get connected with the nature. So yeah, this is something I found. Actually, its tea plant's name is called Camellia sinensis. It's Latin, and sinensis means from China in Latin. And actually the Chinese pronunciation is cha. So I hope everyone would remember the pronunciation after this huddle. And next, so some brief history of tea. Tea plants are native to Asia, and also Chinese have a very long history of drinking, growing, and even exporting tea. That's why the Europeans calling it from China. And also we've written some books of tea, and tea has actually become one of the 7 necessities for Chinese people almost 1,000 years ago. So people put it the same level like firewood, rice, oil, salt. So as you can see, it's a really important thing in normal Chinese people's life. So we've got 6 different classifications of tea with different colors. I'm not sure whether you know all about this, but basically the different types, their main difference is the fermentation level. So as you can see here, the green tea has the lowest fermentation level and the dark tea has the highest one. So maybe it's just too vague or too abstract for you guys. I'm going to show you some photos of the famous tea for each category in China. So the first one is green tea. So this one is called Longjing tea. It's coming from my hometown, Zhejiang province, and it's very famous because it's near the lake, Xihu Lake. And as you can see, the tea soup is very clear, so it's the lowest fermentation level of tea. It's tasting a little bit bitter, so I think the Westerners don't enjoy it too much. That's why the other tea gets more popular. And this one is a type of yellow tea. So the interesting part is, as you can see, the leaves actually goes down very straight. That's why the name is called Junshan Yin Zhen, and the zhen means needle in Chinese. That's kind of mimic the characteristic of this tea. And the third one is white tea. So this one is called Fuding tea. As you can see, the tea soup here is quite tan, and basically it's the tea that's closest to the nature. We don't do fixation, we don't do rolling, we just put it outside and use the nature power to dry it and to fermentate it. So as you can see, this is the tea leaves. It has a little bit white, and also it's very nature. The shape is nature. The next one is a type of oolong tea. The name is Tie Guan Yin. So basically, you can see the tea leaves get a little bit darker. That means the fermentation level is going up, and the tea soup is getting a bit darker compared to the green tea and yellow tea, etc. I'm not sure whether any of you guys have tried these 4 types of teas, but this one must be your favorite. It's black tea. This one is called Qimeng Hong Cha. So basically, this is the most popular tea from my research in the world, and Chinese people start exporting this tea to the European, and they love it with the milk and sugar, etc. I think it goes very well with these elements. That's why it's getting very popular. And the afternoon tea culture started in the England, the Great British. So the interesting part is that Chinese people call it Hong Cha, which means the red tea, but its English name is black tea. So once I was having the conversation with Daniel, and she said black tea, I'm like, oh, is that Hei Cha? And she says, no, it's Hong. So it's very confusing, and the most confusing part becomes this one. We actually have a black tea in China. So it literally means black tea in Chinese, but the English translation is dark tea. So you just imagine red tea becomes black tea and black tea becomes dark tea. Something like this. So the translation is confusing, but this one is called pu'er tea. So this tea is having the highest fermentation level, and it's very good for your body. So basically, the young woman in China, if we eat too much, we drink some pu'er tea, and it takes away the oil and etc. Keep you healthy. So yeah, these are the 6 different tea in China, and these are all very famous. So if you have ever wondered how these different types of tea are made, let's just walk through the tea making process. I find it really interesting. So these are just the 4 main stages of the tea making. Depending on the different types, it can be a bit different, right? So the first one is obvious tea harvesting. So you need to pick the correct timing and pick the correct tea leaves from the tea plants. And it's very labor intensive. So just imagine people need to go there and have a basket and then pick, something like that. And then the second stage is we actually try to dry the tea because we want to keep the tea for a long time. We need to keep the water out of it. So this is the withering and fixation stage. So this is just to dry the tea. And then we have the rolling phase. So this one is to roll the tea leaves to become a certain shape. So this is actually a very manual process, and depending on your experience, depending on your understanding about the tea leaves, like certain tea leaf shapes can be done very good, and this means high price. And if you're not very good at it or not very experienced, you might roll it badly. So the last stage is the fermentation or the drying phase again. So this is the last step before we actually packaging the tea. And to give you more concrete understanding of it, this is the tea fixation. So you put tea leaves and it's very high temperature. You try to fry it. I don't know what's the correct word, but you try to dry it. And you need to be very careful, otherwise you will get burned. It's like 260 degrees in there, so yeah. No, it's not a proper process to do the tea with other tools. It's just a manual process to just use your hand to touch the tea and feel how good it is. Because the timing is very important. You need to actually feel, oh, this is okay, and then you just finish it. Yeah. And this one is the rolling process. As I said, it's a manual process initially, but now we have the rolling machine to help with it. But of course, the most expensive tea is still done by hands. Yeah, so this is kind of artistic, and also it takes a lot of effort to roll the tea leaves. And this is the withering process. So this is the white tea I have mentioned. So you just put it outdoor and use the sun and the wind to help it to dry. So this is very natural process. But it may sound very simple, but the timing and also the weather, everything come into place. And finally, you're going to have a cup of tea like this. We just pour the water into the tea leaves and see the tea leaves getting up. So yeah, I'm going to summarize, per my understanding, the Chinese tea culture with 3 different characteristics. The first one is that tea represents the original taste of nature. I noticed that Chinese people drink tea with the tea leaves and the boiled water without adding anything inside, because we want to just taste the tea leaves taste. And actually, if you still remember the previous slide, when you pour the water into the tea leaves, you actually feel kind of mindful. That it's a mindful process, because imagine the tea leaves was on the tea plant, and then it goes through so many different processes, and finally it gets into your table, and then you give it water, and then it's like seeing the tea leaves get alive again, right? So it's a very mindful process. Also, it's like the Buddhism and other people use it to do their training or try to calm their minds down. So this is the most important thing. And the second thing is that it represents a healthy lifestyle around the world. But Chinese people are particularly picky about what kind of tea you drink, depending on the season, depending on the weather, and also depending on your personal conditions. For example, in summer we drink green tea because it helps you to cool down, and in winter we drink black tea because it's kind of warming you up based on the color and some traditional medicine. And actually tea started to be something to eat initially. So people start to eat it as food, and then it gets into medicine because it helps to protect people with certain diseases. And finally people are thinking, oh, we want to drink it as a drink. So it goes through very different stages in the history. And the last one is that what I feel Chinese people consider tea as a very flexible thing. It's not like Japanese, they feel tea is like teaism, like you need to follow certain steps and it's very strict. But Chinese people is like, for example, these people, they just sit outside and they just put some water into the tea, and it doesn't need to be expensive tea. You can have any tea in any restaurant in China. Actually, it's just like table water here. So if you go to a restaurant, say, I want to have some tea, they're not going to charge you, right? Unless you ask for famous ones. Yeah, so it's very naturally integrated into Chinese people's normal life. In fact, the young generations, if they go to a different country and they can't find bubble tea, they will feel very sad or disappointed because they can't live without tea. Yeah. So that's it.